Hi, everybody. Sorry for the technical difficulties, but it is Michelle here, and I am so excited for this RABC/Wow podcast. I am here with a lady that I only had the privilege to meet. It was about a year ago, I think we met Jo, and I have had the pleasure of spending some quality time with Jo and learning about her story, not only as an entrepreneur, but also, in my very humble opinion, Jo Diblee is a phoenix rising out of the ashes. She is one inspirational woman. And so, Jo, thank you so much for joining me today in the RABC podcast.
Well, I'm honored. I think all of us are really phoenix rising. I think if we talk to every single woman who is out there doing what they're, really called to do. I think each and every one of us has a story to tell and a purpose. We are, brought here, put here, however you want to look at it. We have something to bring to the table, something that will change a life. Each of us, I was saying to someone the other day, and I had heard this through some other avenue, venue, or what have you, that we may not be the key that opens every door, but we are the key that opens someone's door.
Oh, and that is beautiful.
Isn't that beautiful? It's beautiful. I wish it was mine, but it's not mine. And as a writer, I really wish it was mine. But I think, we have an opportunity to impact another each and every day and in some way. And as I said, maybe not everyone's door, but certainly someone's door.
Absolutely. Well, I know that when I had the opportunity to first meet you, Jo, it was a door opening experience for me, for sure. And so not only are you an amazing entrepreneur, inspiring other entrepreneurs and women in business and leadership with their life, love, and business as you tour around North America with these amazing conferences, fantastic speakers, and really building a tribe of support for women in business. But also too, you're an international best-selling author. How amazing is that?
It's just been a real whirlwind since I decided to get out of my own way. Like, that is the truth. And I was reflecting on this last week in particular. A lot of really amazing things have happened, but I think back, and isn't it always the case that we have this thing, whatever this thing is, this, and obstacle, and we are the obstacle. This is the obstacle.
Absolutely. We have to learn to shut the duck up.
Isn't it? It's the truth, right? So I talk about, I'm going to spell this first, frocks. F-R-O-C-K.
Yes.
Mine were frocks. For those of you that aren't familiar with a frock, it's a costume or a disguise. For me, it was obstacles. My obstacle often just disguised it was fear. Okay, so fear is a really big obstacle for us. I had lots of legitimate reasons, as you know, Michelle. I mean, I had really great, I would say, excuses to be afraid.
I would say you had really big reasons. So Jo, when I ask this question, I know you'll get it when I ask the question, but everyone watching this podcast, when I say, who is Jo Diblee?
Well, interestingly enough, Jo Diblee is only 6 years old, because Jo Diblee didn't exist until 2013. So technically, I'm really only 5 and a bit, because Jo Diblee is a made-up name. Jo Diblee, prior to this is my 20th name, really. I've had 19 names before this. I was a witness in a murder investigation. So I spent all these prior years being someone else. But Jo Diblee today is, well, of course, I'm still a woman, but I'm a wife, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother, I'm a business owner. But what I really am is I'm free. And if you've never been someone who's had to be in hiding or have lived in fear, as I said, I had legitimate reasons why, of course, I was afraid. it's hard to understand, but I really believe that often, not often, all of us have lived in fear in some, we've all had moments where it's easy to understand why we didn't move forward. But how sad is that if we stay in that moment? So, I'm dancing around some of this, but the truth is, I came into this world, had a tragic situation as a child, ended up in foster care. Is it okay if I share some of it?
Oh, please share the story. Yes.
So, came in, and many, many foster children have experienced, and I'm not saying that all foster care is bad, because it is not. There are phenomenal foster parents out there that sacrifice, and they do all the good things. And it's a really hard road to walk. I know this because I know foster parents that have sacrificed and done all the right things for all the right reasons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And had tragic circumstance happen, meaning those kids were placed in other homes and so on and so forth. But unfortunately, in my situation, the foster parents were using the system to access victims. And I was one of those kids. Unfortunately, taking it further, the RCMP did not believe me, and sadly, the person, the foster father, went on to murder little girls. And I was lucky to have lived and became a witness for the RCMP. Well, at 19, you don't really know what you're saying yes to. I know, if I think back now at 57, would I have said yes? Yes, I still would have said yes. Mm-hmm. But I really didn't understand what I was getting into. And so for 35 plus years, I lived in hiding. I moved 53 times in total now, 19 names and 7 passports, merely to stay alive. So did I have legitimate reasons why I might not have been living the life I wanted to live?
Yes. I would say so. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely, right? But I will tell you that there were times when there were things I still could have done differently, just as we all encounter those things, that some of those fears still encapsulated me enough that I didn't do them. So just as we may have legitimate, as you say, shut the ducks up, you become accustomed to your fear. Your fear becomes your safe haven, and so you don't live outside. That becomes your comfort zone. Right?
Without a doubt. The fear is the huge wall of China comfort zone around you. And sometimes not as big as the wall of China. Sometimes it's only this big for a comfort zone, and the wall is tight versus something much larger. So yes, it's like the huge brick wall that's holding us back.
It is. It can be so myopic, and yet to us, it is massive. Right? And for myself, it wasn't until I was, and you hear this over and over when you talk to either trauma people, that have been through extreme trauma or been through an extreme situation, or it's whatever the thing is, whether I'm sick and tired of a job, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. When you get sick and tired of being sick and tired is when you make a change. And then you're willing to risk it all. Whatever it was. And that happened to me. It was 2007, February the 28th at 7 p.m. And I call it my demarcation line. And I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I thought, you know what? I just don't care anymore. I just wanted to change. And that was my day that I decided enough was enough. Or as they say in Italian, basta.
Yes.
Basta, right?
So, Jo, when at that point, was that the point in time where you said, okay, I'm done hiding, the person that was looking for me and chasing for me is no longer with us on the planet, he had passed away? And is that that point where you said, I'm going to become an international author and tell my story? Or was that the time that you said, okay, I'm going to take control of my life and become an entrepreneur? What happened then?
That's a really good question. Okay, so first and foremost, never is it as easy as we want it to be, right? So here's what happened. As I said, I had my basta moment, and I decided enough was enough. And I turned to a girlfriend who had said to me, basically in passing, what would you do differently if you could do, that kind of like, what would you do if money wasn't a problem or if life was different? And I said, I would frock off. Remember, it's F-R-O-C-K.
F-R-O-C-K, yes.
No swearing. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But anyway, not judging. And it sounds all well and good, and it sounds easy, but if it was easy, everyone would do it, right? Very cliche, but very true. And what that meant for me was I started to write, and I started to journal, and I'm a big fan of journaling, and as a writer, I still journal. And by the way, I'm dyslexic. So if somebody's watching this and says, yeah, but I'm dyslexic, well, whatever. I'm an international award-winning author. This is my, okay? And by the way, that's okay.
That's okay too, yes.
Good thing, okay? So who'd have thought that the little girl from a little town that grew up with no food, no running water, I mean, when I say no food, I don't mean no food, not things I didn't like. I mean ketchup with tomato soup with hot water, okay? So who'd have thought that little girl would be on a stage in another country receiving not one, not two, not three, 4 international awards, 4 years in a row, out of 33,000 books for my book. Who'd have thought? Anyway, segue. My point is, I didn't even know at the time what that looked like. I started writing my just freehand, and I was so petrified, Michelle. I would write freehand. And I find for me that's the best way to write, by the way. I would write those journals, and I get goosebumps when I talk about this. I would write those out, and I was still so scared of him. I would take those journals as they filled, and I would lift the drawer liners of my dresser drawer, slide them under. So I'd fill a journal.
Wow.
Like honestly, I'm cold right now. Slide them under the drawer and fill up the next one. Slide it under that liner. And I had 5 drawers in that dresser. When I was full, I stood there with my last journal and I went, oh boy. At this point, I didn't even know that I was ever going to publish. And I just stood there and I realized I had nowhere to hide this journal. And honestly, at this point, I was still really afraid, one, of what people would think about me, because it's not just the story of what he did to me, but what my parents had done, because you don't end up in foster care if you come from a stable home.
That's true, yes.
Right? And there was a lot of stuff around that. And oh my goodness, what would I do? And here I stood, my hands are vibrating and not just shaking, okay, the whole body. I'm like having an out-of-body experience. I'm thinking, well, where do I hide this? I remember looking at the corner of the rug in the closet thinking I could possibly pull up the rug. Like, we're talking like terror here. But I thought, no, I can probably stick it in my little nightstand. But I don't know what happened. Something kicked into play to go, you don't have to keep living like this. And so I just put it on top. And the next morning I decided, if I was going to publish, who would I dedicate it to? And I decided in that moment that I was going to take the bold step of actually publishing my book. And I was actually going to dedicate it to Susan, whose life he had taken at 12. And that the book was going to serve a purpose, because I never wanted it to be woe is me and how tragic my life was. And yes, it was tragic he took Susan's life, but that her little voice was going to stand, her little life, her short life was going to stand for something, and that it was going to mean something what happened to her.
Yes.
And that, she wasn't going to be victimless. That's our problem. We hear about these sad stories and then we go, oh, but it was victimless. No, she's not victim. There's a face. There's a voice.
This is not a faceless crime.
Yes, amen to that. And so I thought, how do I tell it so that we're inspired? And that is why the book has been acknowledged. But that being said, I made that decision. But at this time, I didn't know he was gone. So I was still afraid, but I went forward. And it would be, so remember, that's 2007. By 2012, I decide now to go online and do some research in the cold case studies. And I discover he's passed away and the police have forgotten to tell me. So it's 5.5 years after I remember longhand, still afraid, and I discovered. That was not an easy moment, truthfully.
Well, I would be surprised if it was an easy moment. First of all, I'm sure a shock to realize that you had been free from this terrorization for 5 years and sadly had been unaware.
Yeah, it was, to say shock is mild. Well, initially shock and then anger, to the point where I thought it was hard enough to not be believed the first time, and then now to have not been told, to be overlooked. It was hard. But then, I decided this was even more important now. Now it had to be published, because where were the other girls like me that lived? There were 26 girls like me that lived. Or did they? This is what I didn't know now, right?
Right.
So we went forward. And you see, I'd been an entrepreneur, but under a different name, in hiding. The irony of everything that happened was so ridiculous. And so 2013, Jo Diblee was born, so to speak.
Yes.
The book launched, and I was scared because, all my story was coming out then. The truth came out, and Frock Off was born, and really have not looked back since.
So tell me about Frock Off. What is the mission of Frock Off? And this is your business. You have turned from, just blocking all that fear that you experienced, and valid fear, into an international best-selling, award-winning author and an entrepreneur. What is Frock Off?
Well, when we started, as I said, I didn't even know what I was going to publish, and I quite naively, I'd love to tell you this was strategic. This would be a great moment to say, I was so strategic. Okay, I thought I would launch the book, and I would speak on a few stages, and I would have done my service to mankind. I knew that I wanted to change the system, to have the conversation, to say, there's a problem, because this is one crime that is still a problem, okay? Because if you look at the Me Too movement and all of that, excuse me, this still continues to be an issue, because there's a serious issue if there's an allegation that's unfounded. So there still continues to be an issue. But what I also noticed was women in particular were having a challenge. If they had any trauma in their lives and they had a business, it was even more of an issue for them to really fully launch themselves. Mm-hmm. And they had confidence issues. And look at what you do with Shut the Duck Up. It is such a synchronicity of what we're talking about here, because even without trauma, there's such synchronicity, right? I mean, I so admire what you do, and it's so important, because how many of you that are listening right now or hearing this or watching this know that you're something so absolutely beautiful that will change people's lives, that are just being held back by one little thing. And I'm not saying your thing is little. What I'm saying is if you let that thing go, again, I'm getting the cold. Please, can you send a blanket? I'm
But that one little thing, whether it's one little thing in our mind, or one little thing in our mind, which has escalated to a massive thing, is fear. Essentially, it all comes down to, someone really wise once said to me, a friend of ours, Holly Holmberg, so I'll shout out to Holly on this one, told me, Michelle, there are only two emotions. There is love and there is fear. And every other emotion deviates from those two. Yeah. So the fear is that 4-letter F word. It's horrible.
It is. It is. Yeah. A lot of the F words aren't so special, right? And so it's so true. And I think, for myself, I just kept seeing this. And really what Frock Off stands for is to help women stand on their stories and not in it. And that's really what I am known for, is helping women primarily. We have a few evolved men, but really it's far and few between. It's women standing on their stories and creating, really the wow movement, and to tap into what you talk about, right? And movement, and helping them really take that. Because when you stand on your stories rather than in it, you inspire other people. When you stand on whatever has happened, not as a carry a flag around going, oh, life was awful. Yes, there were some really tough moments. I've been brought to my knees, but so have you. We've all been brought to our knees. One of the biggest worries I had was I did not want anyone to feel sorry for me, because I don't feel sorry for me. I feel empowered. I feel like a catalyst because I am that, because I chose that. Do I always feel like I'm on fire? No. There are days I'm still on my knees. But you know what? There's only one way up then.
Yep. Just right, get back up.
Right? That is all there is.
Absolutely.
Stay down or get up.
Speaking of just getting back up, I know you've had multiple awards and successes, and you have had a lifetime of getting back up and being successful. And I know this will probably be a really tough question, but of all of that, what would you consider your greatest success so far as an entrepreneur?
Oh, I honestly, writing the book. And the reason being is because it was really easy. It was very hard when I was in hiding, and that I was in hiding and that I was scared, okay? But I was very successful. No one knew all my dirty laundry. No one knew the truth about who I was. I was successful. I had lots of international awards. I've been recognized lots of times. Didn't matter what name I was under at whatever time. I was lucky. I was a top performer, so I was easily adaptable, easily moldable. I would go into that, be successful, go on to the next thing. This isn't ego talking. This is just what happened for me, right? And I was lucky because I am a quick study, and I love people, and I love story, and I love being part of a journey. And I've always been involved in startups, so entrepreneurship was very easy for me. And I loved working with startup companies, so it was easy for me to ramp up. But putting out my own dirty laundry is a whole different ballgame.
It is.
Right?
It is.
So when I launched my book and then started talking on stages, and people were looking at me and staring and being quiet. I love dark humor. But there's only so much you see me speak.
Yes.
There's so much dark humor you can use around some of my subject matter. And they were staring, and I was like, I must be losing them. So it was scary. It was very scary. And I think being vulnerable is the new courageous.
Amen.
Right?
I absolutely hear that. And I guess we can thank Brené Brown for making the word vulnerability. Okay.
Yeah.
Especially as a woman in business or a woman in a leadership role, even if you're not in business for yourself, but if you're in a leadership position or a management position of a larger corporation, then, being vulnerable can sometimes be really tough, and saying, hey, I need help is really difficult. So when it comes to overcoming struggles, you're the expert. For sure, in again, like I said, Phoenix out of the ashes. So the entrepreneurs that are watching this podcast and they're feeling a little low today, we ride the entrepreneurship roller coaster of highs and lows. So, and they're feeling a little low today. They're fearful, or perhaps they're standing on the edge of that cliff and they want to jump into entrepreneurship, but they haven't yet. They still haven't, as Tony Robbins says, they haven't burnt the boats to take the island yet.
Yeah.
So what piece of advice would you give them to, get back up? When entrepreneurship and life brings us to our knees, how do we get back up?
Well, the first thing I would say is we are taught when we're in a corporation, we're taught team. Mm-hmm. When we go to entrepreneurship, we're taught to be the expert. And that is a critical mistake. You don't need to know everything. When you're in a corporation, you're not expected to know everything. In fact, you're supposed to be a team player. Even when you're the president, you hire the CEO and the president, he or she hires the smartest people. Mm-hmm. He doesn't, or she doesn't. I'm saying he because it's just the role thing.
Sure.
Right? They don't need to be the smartest or the sharpest knife in the drawer. They know better. They know to hire smart people. So why is it when we go open our own companies, we think we have to know everything, do everything? What is that old line? Chief something, bottle washer, janitor, whatever.
Yeah, I call it chief of everything versus CEO.
Right. Dumb. Because you know what? I talk to entrepreneurs every day that are struggling because they realize they get to this point where they go, well, I don't know how to do this. Well, you don't need to. There are people that know how to do that. So I think why so many of us, we come to our knees, so to speak, because we think we ought to know how to do all of this. Now, not picking on a gender, because I am one of them. As a woman, we've been taught that we should be able to do everything and do it well. And especially mothers, okay? I'm going to call us out. I'm a mother.
You bet.
Right? Where's that superwoman cape that you hide underneath the shirt here where you haven't slept because there's only 24 hours in the day? And why do you need to sleep more than 2 of them? Like, come on, do it all. So I think one of the challenges as women in particular, create a team. If you're not part of a mastermind, for the love of all that is holy, get yourself a team. Now, I'm going to risk something here. I'm going to say something that might offend some of you. This is all Michelle's fault, by the way.
I'll take the blame. I got big shoulders.
Please do not think that means a free group. Pay for something. You get what you pay for. And don't be looking for flowers. Go out and get a good group. There's a reason there are boards, advisory boards. Go and find some people that will give you the truth.
Yeah.
I mean real constructive feedback, okay? Now, I know that doesn't sound really supportive, but trust me when I tell you a good mastermind group, a good advisory board is worth, it's actually priceless. Right? I
agree. And that's why I started the WOW Inner Circle, I call it. I have 3 groups running on a mastermind level. I'm joining that mastermind group right after our interview, and we're so excited. But you're right, that's where you get the real feedback, because I was working with a client the other day, and there is a 4-quadrant section of what we see ourselves and what other people see. And there is a section of that quadrant of what somebody else sees, but what I don't see about myself. Mm-hmm. And so that's where the masterminds of having the wisdom of the crowd see what I cannot see. Totally. But in exposing what I cannot see, that pushes me forward just to get better.
Absolutely.
And I love the masterminds. I loved being part of your mastermind, Jo, because that was really open. And I remember you saying, you looked at me and you said, Michelle, if you're not speaking, you shouldn't be doing anything else. So, and that is always in my head. So thank you for that.
It's so powerful, right? Because how can we see it? We're too close.
Mm-hmm.
And further, I will often say, and I'm sure you've heard me say this, I'm not looking for flowers. I want feedback, because really, I don't need, you shouldn't be paying for your friends, quite honestly. You need to get real solid feedback. I would also say from an entrepreneur standpoint, please know this. There are going to be great days, but there are also going to be some hard days. That's life. Please know that those great days are going to be peppered with some interesting days. I'll use that, okay? But know that the great days are so much greater because you've ridden those waves. But to surround yourself with people that will give you that feedback. I have them. I've had them the last few months. I've had some interesting ones, but you speak about being able to rise, hon. I mean, I run my business now from Mexico, we're going into the UK in 2019. We're going into Madrid. We're going into Holland. It's because I have some things in place, and the mastermind is essential. We have online mastermind as well. We have it at our events, as you said, and it works. It's phenomenal, but be willing to do the work too, right?
Yes, be willing to do the work. And it is work.
It is. But
just, sadly, entrepreneurs cannot necessarily fire themselves if they're not doing a good job.
No.
But their customers sure will fire them.
Oh, yeah. And that's something to take note of.
Absolutely. So, Jo, you talk about, the author, the entrepreneur, the mom, the grandmother, the aunt, the friend, the mentor. Work-life balance. Is that a myth for a woman in business who wears all those caps? Or is it something that's achievable?
Well, okay. So I'm the frockaholic.
Yes.
No. Okay, I had true confessions for Jo. I'm consistently striving for this because I enjoy work. If anything, I am definitely a frockaholic, which means I love work. Okay, I take great pleasure from work. I am very passionate about my work. So work brings me great joy. So what I've had to do is find the things that also bring me balance, in which writing does. Okay, so I consider work to be also part of my balance.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing I've learned is I love walking. And I've reestablished walking. I don't know if you saw one of my posts recently.
10,000 steps.
10,000 steps. So I went to the doctor the other day. So I love validation. Okay, so I'm one of those girls that loved a report card. I can admit this. I don't need competition, but I need validation.
Mm-hmm.
So my doctor told me that my blood pressure was 116 over 76. And I was like, well, yes, I know.
That's fabulous.
I was very excited. And then they took it again. They said, well, your blood pressure is way down, because I had a little BP issue last year. And I was like, oh my goodness. So there you go. So, I did that. And there's a new saying that many of you, it's not mine again, I wish it was. It's called forest bathing. Well, I live on Vancouver Island. And forest bathing is when you go walk in nature and you notice what's around you. So yes, I take my phone, but the only reason I take my phone is to take pictures.
Oh, I love that.
I have to tell you, I've been bathing a lot. Now I wear my clothes. I don't want to give you any weird.
What happens on Vancouver Island stays on Vancouver Island.
But it's absolutely stunning. And I'm getting my 10K easy peasy. So now I'm thinking, and now people are telling me I'm running Jo's boot camp. So who knows? That might be a new business.
It could be a new thing.
Yeah. So in true fashion, I'm enjoying it. So I guess anything's possible, right?
Oh, I believe you. And I believe with you, Jo, anything that you put your mind to truly is possible. So, Jo, you talk about you're moving your business from a North American level, because I know you have the secrets of success in business and life and love all over Canada, all over the United States, but now into Madrid and the UK. So there must be some fabulous marketing behind that. What is your best marketing tip?
Engagement.
Okay, of course.
I know that's a broad statement, but I absolutely love people. I love being engaged with others. I love learning about what they're doing. I love learning about exactly what makes them tick, you know, having this time with you, Michelle, and knowing that other people are, you know, I hope that others gain something from this. But, you know, I love it when people reach out to me and say, hey, tell me more about this so I can learn more about them. I get so excited by other people's businesses. You know, I can see, I'm sure you can too, when, you know, you're talking to someone and you go, hey, have you tried this? Like, cool. I can see a gap in someone's business so easily, and or just the excitement or the passion about them taking it to the next level. And it's something that for me has been inherent since I was little. I just didn't know that everybody didn't do. I thought everyone did this, right? But that's when we have a gift, we just know it. And I've been holding off going into Europe for Australia's. I think you and I talked about that.
Australia!
It's coming, honey. It's coming. It's been on the radar for quite some time now, but I really want to make sure, and you know darn well who's going with me.
Of course. I'll pick up my accent anytime.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Suitcase packed, sister.
That's right. I'll call my dad. I'm coming home.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm super excited. I think the biggest thing for me was just staying open and being ready and creating a system. So the marketing piece, the biggest thing is engagement, but also creating. I'm a big fan of email, and that really has been one of the biggest pieces for me. You know, it's an older book, but it's so dog-eared for me. And, you know, may I show my two books?
Absolutely, please. And how do we get our own copy?
Right from Amazon.
Okay.
I know it reads backwards, but not that I'm a little bit biased, but this book is the one that's won the awards. This is the book, and this is really how I went from being a best kept secret to success in life, love, and business. And it's really my story in terms of how I moved from being sort of in the shadows to the spotlight. And it's really my presentation. But I'm super excited to share too that our my fourth book, because there's a couple versions of Rock Off, but the red one is, if anybody's looking to get a copy, get the red cover book. My fourth book, Bella's Dash, is coming out, and it's a completely different genre. It's really about rescue animals. I'm very philanthropic. That's where my heart lies.
Yes.
It's about rescue animals, post-traumatic stress disorder, and acute stress disorder. Has been picked up by a publisher, and oh my goodness, it's got legs of its own. It's crazy what's going on.
I'm so excited. Well, I know that I've had the privilege of reading both of the books you showed on the screen, and anyone watching this, highly recommend. I think I read Frock Off in a weekend because I just could not put it down. And after meeting you, it was, I have to know the story in its entirety, and get your Kleenex out, number one, but then at the end, you're so inspired. You're so inspired to live the life you were created to live. And I know Jo Diblee and all your other 19 names that came before that name, you are living your life on purpose. I know this to be true, for sure. So, Jo, as we wrap up today, I know you are coming to Edmonton in September.
Yeah.
So how do people get to sit in a room with you, connect with you, and learn from you?
We're hosting an event. I'm doing a joint event in September on the 14th, 15th, and you can find everything online at frockofflive.com. And it's a 2-day event. It's going to be phenomenal. I'm super excited, and all the details are online there. It's just, this is the time to check it out right now. And just, you know what, it's for those that are ready to make that move to the next step, that they're ready to, you know, often we don't know. We're sort of sitting at that tipping point.
We're still kind of interested. You know, it's like, you know, you see an event on Facebook and you click interested, but you're really not too sure if you're interested or not, and you haven't reached that tipping point of being, okay, I'm committed. I'm ready. Let's go.
Exactly. And, you know, one of the things that I take a lot of pride in is we are not a big conference. That's not what we are. We are a place where people really connect and go in deep and do the work, and you get results. There is no way you will leave without having impacted at your cellular level where you're going. And that sounds so vague, but I know the results happen, and that there is change that happens, and the results they're trackable, they're measurable, they're trackable.
Without a doubt, I can attest to that. I remember sitting in Jo's mastermind with a list of what you want to accomplish in the next 90 days. And I was on the tipping point of launching my Shut the Duck Up process and launching that to the world and getting on stage and moving it into a workshop and coaching program. And that's what I wrote down. And sure enough, 90 days, it happened.
And it was so fast because all of you that commit to because there's an accountability from that event.
True.
The thing that happens, there isn't anyone that comes out of those events that doesn't achieve, even when they dip their toe in, they can't help it, because by the very act of taking the time to write something down. And what's even funnier is sometimes people will be a little bit resistant because they don't want to commit too much. And then all of a sudden, it's just, oh my gosh, I tried not to do it, and I did it. Which I find quite funny. So
that's amazing.
It's been an honor, Michelle. Thank you.
Jo, thank you so much for being a part of the RABC Wow podcast. I know that when everyone sees this, apart from the technical difficulties, that they are going to be blown away like I was the first time I met you. So I really, really appreciate your time, and I can't wait to see you in Edmonton.
I can't wait till we're together again. And I know that, we still got more places to go, ladies.
We still have more places to go. Okay, rock on Gold Coast, Australia. Here we come.
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks, Jo. Bye for now.
Take care. Bye-bye.